Join the Fuzz Buzz, where retired Lieutenant Jessica Taylor and retired Motors Officer Mike Gonzalez serve law enforcement's unfiltered reality. No PC, just raw, uncensored truth. 50 years in the trenches. Buckle up for a blunt, gritty ride behind the badge. No apologies here for shaking things up, demanding better policing, and real community action. It's raw, edgy, and a streetwise journey towards solutions. So strap in and let's rev this truth up.
Well, today is a great day.
Yeah, it is. Every day is a great day when you're in retirement. So.
That's true, too. Yeah. Today is National Law Enforcement Day.
Yep. It's still an honorable profession. We like to, still respect it.
Yeah. And one of our favorite people ever is Clayton Powell.
Yeah, CP.
CP. Everybody knows him as CP. And how do you know him?
I met him somewhere along my career, 22 years of the department. He was there before both of us, but he's just one of those guys that he was big person, big personality. He always had something good to say and he was always willing to help. And he's just somebody you'd gravitate to because that's the kind of guy he was.
Yeah. I think always worked the South End.
He did.
Yeah. And I always worked the North End. And those are two different animals. I mean, it wasn't until I got to working down at the South End that I learned what real police work is.
Yeah, definitely.
So I have so much respect for South Precinct. I mean, I have respect for all officers, but especially people that, give their lives basically working down in the South End of Seattle out of the South Precinct. They are some incredible officers for sure. Being up at the North Precinct, I remember this. I know you can probably agree with me, but when a hot call would come out and it'd be like a shots fired call or, man with a gun or a stabbing or whatever, and the tones would come out and they'd go beep, beep, beep. And then you'd hear the address and it'd be the South Precinct and you're like, oh, thank God. And, when it wasn't until I got down to the South Precinct and those officers just don't need supervision. They just know what to do. It is like a well-oiled machine down there.
You got to just kind of put it in perspective. Like all 5 precincts have 5 different characteristics to them.
100%.
Where the South Precinct, unfortunately, that's where a lot of the shootings were because, that's where in the South End where a lot of the gangs were. And so it became secondhand. A lot of times the tones didn't come out because a lot of times they wouldn't call it in. But it started to be investigated where like the North End was more, oriented towards
burglaries and car prowls, and they don't call that stuff in down at the South End.
No. And if there's a shooting up north, then it was generally, probably more DV related than it was gang related.
Yeah.
And so
it's kind of sad. I mean, I'll let our guests talk to this about why it doesn't get called in. Is it because they don't want the contact with the police or?
Well, I think CP will be better explain. But I think some of it has, they don't trust the police. Some of it is, it happens every day. So why bother calling anymore? Because the police haven't done anything to stop it.
Right.
And so it just becomes, their nature just is like, it is what it is. Shots fired. They hear shots fired. Didn't hit my house. I'll call it a day.
Yeah. Whereas at the North End, if it takes you longer than 15 minutes, they're calling the mayor's office.
Yeah, exactly.
So anyway, so Clayton Powell is our special guest. And so let's bring him on stage. Welcome.
Hey guys, what's going on?
Nothing. How are you?
I'm good. When you guys did your intro, I was sitting here looking around for the guy you were talking about because
oh,
stop. They invited me, but who are they talking about?
Oh, stop. Tell us, for people that don't know who you are, who are you?
Right now, just an average blowjo guy that is during retirement, but I retired from the department after 28 years, just shy of 28 years, back in June 4th, 2021. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so what was your role at the department?
Was
I right? Were you at the South Precinct most of the time?
Predominantly, yes. Probably 80%.
And then Southwest?
2012, I went to what was then community outreach.
Okay.
And worked centrally located downtown. So I had to make that commute into the city every day.
Okay.
So, yeah. And then, East Precinct for a spell, and then Southwest to end it out.
Okay.
So yeah.
Man, I telling you, when I got to the South Precinct, and I can't believe I had worked in police work all these years.
Yeah.
And when you get down to the South Precinct, it's like a whole different ball game.
Yeah.
Not in a bad way,
No.
Right.
but like these officers are just like,
And we had the Lakewood 4, and then we had the Mundell shooting.
right in a row.
Yeah. And we were inundated with services. It's like every 3 weeks we were getting a call out.
Well, there was the one, wasn't the Everett officer that fell down between the trestle?
Oh no, that was a while ago.
Oh, I thought that was
in 2009. No.
Okay.
No, that was back in the 90s.
Oh, I thought that was that same year. Okay, go on.
So my partner in the ride, a retired Kent PD officer named Gary Fox, we had a conversation about doing something that would give officers an outlet, so to speak, something to decompress. And he and I both work motorcycles, and I said, man, let's try doing a motorcycle ride. And someone that I was dating at the time and I had a conversation, and then Gary's wife piped in on it. So the four of us kind of just went for it. And
it's
that first ride,
an event together, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it was fun. We all think along the same lines. The four of us did, and so I came up with the idea. Gary had a lot of contacts as far as police involved businesses and police support businesses, and we pulled it off. I think the first ride was the end of July. I want to say July 25th of 2010. And being new at the game at that point, we didn't know that a motorcycle company would, like one of the Harley Davidson dealerships would be glad to have us start the ride there. So we did it in the back of Randy's restaurant down on East Marginal, was the first staging point. And then I mentioned it to my home dealership is in Fife. I mentioned it to one of the people there, and he says, "Why didn't you start it here?" And I was like, "You guys do that?" "Oh yeah, we do that all the time." So that was my kind of introduction into doing motorcycle rides and putting on events of that level. And it turned out it was great. It was an awesome first turnout. And we did it every year for 10 years until COVID said, we can't do large anymore.
I'll tell you, I know how hard doing events are. It takes a lot of energy to pull it off. But what I respect the most about it is I respect your time with the Honor Guard. I mean, you did an amazing job with the Honor Guard, but even more so was the amount of work you put in to these fallen officers and their families.
Yeah.
In your off time.
The plaque, get them together, have them come out, have them be a part of it was really the best part for me. Yeah.
And just, just because I've done events like this before, I know how much energy it takes and how difficult it is. And so it was just very admirable. And that's why you're one of my heroes.
You say it's fun, but it's only fun once you kickstands are up, because then it's like,
right. Traditionally, for a number of years, the morning of the ride, my back just tightened up. So it was because of the stress, the accumulation of the stress and that kind of thing. So it was enjoyable to do. I still have people ask about it to this day. It's like, you ever going to do the ride again? I don't know. Well, Gary and I every once in a while talk about it and flirt with the idea, but
I absolutely think you should. So
okay,
anyway, so we want to play the video so people know what we're talking about with your ride. But I think it's also important to remember, first of all, what today is.
Yes.
And today is National Law Enforcement Day.
There you go.
Yeah.
There we go. And yesterday was the 5th anniversary of Deputy McCartney's end of watch.
Yeah.
And that was a very sad day. we honor him
Yes.
and everybody else, right? And you started, tell us the main reason why you started Honor Guard and.
Wow. The main reason, when I first started, my graduation from FTO was June 4th.
Mhm.
So I was blessed by my FTO and the FTO coordinator to go forth and do police work, the whole blessing. And my first call by myself, I looked next to me to my right and the seat was empty. I was like, oh, damn, I gotta make all these decisions myself. So that whole day ended. And so the FTO party was that night. I get pulled over by a trooper on the way home. And it was at Michigan and I-5 southbound. And during this stop, I guess he stopped me because he was bored. He wanted somebody to talk to, and I happened to be that lucky person. So before we left, he says, well, how's your officer doing? And I said, I don't know anybody on the department. What are you talking about? And he said, one of your officers has been shot down at the next exit, Swift Alpro. That was Antonio Terry.
Oh, geez. Yep. Antonio Terry.
Antonio and I, worked at McDonald's as teenagers together. So when I said I don't know anybody on the department because I just started, the only person that I did know was the one that was shot. And so Antonio unfortunately passed away that night. My FTO, my original FTO, my sign-off FTO was Mike Thomas, and he was in the honor guard. So I asked him, how do I get involved with this? Because this just took on a whole personal thing for me, because I knew Antonio, and he introduced me to the honor guard commander, Frank Campson. Frank and I had a conversation, gave me a few marching orders and said, okay, get him a uniform. And that's where it started. So.
Well, you're really, really good at it. You're really good at it. So with that, I don't want to forget to tell you my first call on the department because you're probably laughing. But I want people to see how amazing this ride is. So hang on.
Okay.
Here we go.
Okay.
So, that was really, I made it so I sized it so it's viewable on a phone.
Yeah.
And because these longer ones are YouTube size. So anyway, I just put that together because I just had some of those best days were those days. I loved it. Absolutely loved it. And I don't think, Mike, did we miss any?
We missed the first couple. I think we hit the last. I think we got the last 8. I remember I kept having to fight for time off because it's always. I can't remember what event was always happening around that time, but there's like.
It was the last. I had to plan it for the last week. No, the weekend before the last weekend in July.
Yeah, because the torch fight.
Street fair. Yeah. So it was strategic planning on my part, just so that anybody who worked for our department could, have a chance to come out and ride. So.
Yeah, I mean, there were so many people there. Oh my gosh. Okay, so my very first call, I just got to tell you, just because it's so funny, you mentioned first call, and even though yours was absolutely horrific, mine was absolutely horrific going the other way. So I'm down the South End, third watch. Butch Kaysen is my FTO. First call. I'm greener than green. I've been sheltered my entire life. I have no fucking idea what police work is, really, right? No idea. So my first call out of the barn is a male masturbating, standing on a boulder rock in front of this woman's picture window on third watch in South Seattle. And I'm like looking at Butch like, is this some kind of joke? Or, what is this? And sure enough, we get there and this guy is just going to town. And Butch is just standing there like, okay, handle it. I'm like, I don't even know what I'm supposed to do. Oh my God, it was the worst. It was the worst. And then later that same night, I got my first real taste of this 10-year-old could kill you.
Yeah.
And so that was a little eye-opening too. So I had no idea this stuff actually really happened.
Yeah. Well, my first call wasn't anything like. My first call was actually kind of humorous, but in an eye-opening way for me as a Black officer. And
Tell me.
It was a car pile up in Ballard. And so I knock on this lady's door, and this older white lady opens the door, and she just stands there.
Oh, no.
And I said, "Hi, I'm Officer Powell. I'm here to take your report. I think your car got broken into." And she stands back and she goes, "Well, when I called, I didn't really expect to see you."
No.
Take that one way, right? So I just kind of thought for a second. I says, "Well, ma'am, you're welcome to discontinue this contact, but for the next 2.5 hours, if you call back, I'm going to get dispatched because this is my district. Now we can handle it now, or you can, call another day." She goes, "Just no, you come right on in, young man." And it was I just didn't expect to see you, I just kind of laughed, because it let me know that this path I've chosen has some conditions that come with it based on people's opinions. Mm-hmm. So, I took it with a grain of salt, and we handled the call and told her, we left on amicable terms. And it was just,
course. Yeah. Well, hopefully it was
up in the South in the 60s. It was kind of, anyway.
I mean, I hope for her it was a teaching moment as well,
Yeah.
We do have Black police officers here. And they're very good.
Like he said, on the generational thing, some people are just stuck in that generation.
Yeah.
It's not like today.
Yeah.
So if she was an older woman, but
you're
a professional. That's all that mattered. And you got it all done.
What do you think makes a good leader?
I'm going to speak from our profession, and that is someone who keeps their those subordinates under their command as a priority. When it comes down to people who just want to elevate and put a notch on, their resume to say that I did A, B, C, and D, is to me a dishonor to, one, the profession, and two, to those under their command. And looking out for get to know your officers. If you ask one of your officers how their day is going, and their response is, this is going to be kind of on ground level. You know what? I got up today and I was able to wipe my own butt and I came to work. If one of your troops says that, they're on the edge of a dark place. And that was
Yep.
one of my responses to a captain I worked for years ago. And he just lowered his head, turned around and walked away. Instead of saying, dude, you want to go have coffee and talk about it? You know,
Right.
one of those kind of things. Because that wasn't at the time where, you know, everybody hits that dark point in their career. If you're a cop and you don't hit a dark point in your career, you haven't done a damn bit of work. So you dodge calls that involve seeing certain things and to protect yourself from the horror that we have to witness on an almost daily basis. So that was at a time when I was reaching that pinnacle of knowing, okay, I'm in this for the long haul, because I think that was about 12 or 14 years in. But if one of my troops said that to me, it would be a different response other than turning my head and walking away, because the level of, I think it was after right before one of our big contracts was signed, and we were frustrated. People were leaving, and it was just, it was an air of a stigma of disappointment in our leadership at that time. And it even got worse over the years. So,
yeah. Well, like Jess and I talked, it's like you expect a supervisor, if they're in tune with their squad, they could watch one walk down the hallway and say, well, let's go have a talk. Exactly. You just got that look. You know, you either know what's that word, baseline, you know, and you know when somebody's off the baseline, or, you know, they say that right thing like you did and it goes unanswered. That's just wrong. That's not a good leader.
Yeah. What else? Anything else?
Who's your favorite sergeant? Who raised you as a sergeant?
I can't, you know, when Jess asked me to make a list, I couldn't get it below 8. So I have to say that I've had a group of favorite sergeants. I'm going to go with, I'm going to go with Jay Shin, Kevin Mason, and Pierre Davis.
Nice.
So yeah, those are my favorite sergeants. But I mean, I've got them. Pierre Davis is now a captain on the department.
Retired, right?
I don't think so. I haven't heard.
Oh.
But I was with him at every level of leadership in his career. So he actually brought me out to the Southwest Precinct for a specific reason. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Southwest Precinct is a good place to end your days. That's for sure.
It was.
Yeah.
It was.
For me, let me try to rattle off some of the ones that I thought of. Paul Pendergrass.
Okay.
I just love Paul. I thought, you know, Paul and I shared a desk. I never worked for Paul, but I learned a lot from Paul.
Yeah.
You know, and just how to treat people and, you know, take care of your troops and stuff. I learned that all from just desk trading, you know?
Right. Yeah.
Robin Clark. And I know she's not everybody's cup of tea, but for me, she was just one of those people that just will fight tooth and nail for you. Just go to bat for you.
Right. Yeah.
Wilski, I had a lot of respect for. He didn't give two shits if your hair touched your collar. You know,
he was everybody wanted a mustache.
He you know, at a scene would come up and make sure that you were okay, and then just handle it. You know, he never, you know, did all this other stupid shit. And then Jeff Gohagen, and I know he's not you know, he was on SWAT, and I know, you know, some people don't like him. And I think he was behind me on the list, on the lieutenant's list. And I think he got robbed because they didn't like him. They promoted me and they screwed him. There was no reason for him not to get promoted. But he's one of those people where when he shows up, you just kind of go, you know, and it's the same thing with Arata. Arata was one of those people too, where when he shows up, it was kind of like, okay, it's going to be okay, you know? And so even though Jeff wasn't like a lieutenant, I mean, he could be now, I don't know, but he would just, and when I was in the academy, I didn't necessarily like him, you know? But as I saw him getting screwed more and more through the department, I'm like, this guy's more and more solid, you know?
Yeah.
And so those were the ones that really stuck out for me. What about you, Mike?
Oh,
well, do you remember any of the ones?
Yeah, we're talking just strictly sergeants. I don't know. Sarah Springer, she was my first sergeant out of FTO, and she just gave me the the blessing to go on, do good things for God and country with, her support, allowed me to kind of be the guy I was. Then Arel Vela, that guy, he just, he showed you the old ways, the new ways, and he just took care of you. He said, if he said he's going to take care of you on doing something, his word was everything. And then, my last one was Jerry Harris out of Motors. And, that guy's a saint, and so,
But didn't you have Lavelle? Didn't you?
Oh, he was my first lieutenant.
Right. But why did you like him?
Oh, well, shoot. I remember Ron Lavelle, the first day I showed up at the North Precinct straight off of FTO. I came from the West Precinct off of FTO. My first day in the North, he walked up and said, "Mike, welcome to the North Precinct. We're glad to have you." I'm like, "Who the hell are you?" But the fact that he was a shift lieutenant, and I didn't know that, but the shift lieutenant knew my first name and came. And everybody else was dodging me like I had the plague because, oh shit, there's an FNG, get away.
Yeah.
Ron Lavelle came out of nowhere and just shook my hand and said, "Welcome, Mike." And I'm like, wow, okay. So, yeah.
So those are some really strong points about leadership, and they just don't have that now. I mean, it's just crazy what is going on.
Well, I hate to say it's a different caliber of people out there. It's just a different era where these newer officers learn, and you have a department that's not giving them the leeway to be supervisors. It's like we talked about it, Jess and I. When I came on, you didn't have to screen a misdemeanor arrest. You just straight booked them. Now you got to screen an accident, you got to screen a ticket, you got to screen misdemeanor arrest, unarrest. It's just like, it's like you're no longer an officer, and the supervisor is now, micromanaging. It's crazy.
Yes.
So I want to talk about this. This is your 2020 interview. In 2020, your ABC interview in 2020. Remember?
CBS interview.
CBS.
Oh,
interview.
that was 21.
Was it in 21?
Yeah, it was literally, I think, within 2 weeks of my last day. I think it was May of 21.
Oh yeah, that feeling of I just don't give a rip. I'm gonna just go out and answer the question honestly.
Told the truth, That's it.
Yeah. Let's see if we can get it to play here, real quick.
Yeah, because it was one of those things. To explain to people, it's like we as officers weren't allowed to talk to the media, and then if we were allowed, it was you got to, hold the line. And it's like after a while you get tired of.
Most people have no clue that in 2023 the best way to make money on Amazon is not with physical.
Amazon
was enacted. A dozen police.
Okay, I wanted to get the screen blown up. Also,
but my biggest thing about it is I just hated lying to the public, telling them a false narrative.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes. And the problem is I never did. So, I found myself getting questioned quite a bit of why'd you say that? Well, because they asked me a question, I told them the truth. Because dishonesty is punishable up to and including termination on this department. And I know that well because I spent a lot of time at OPA. So anyway, yeah.
Okay. Anyway, let's watch this.
Reform laws following nearly a year of nationwide protests over police brutality. And according to one social justice group, more than $840 million were cut from U.S. police budgets. That was in 2020. The Seattle PD is struggling under the public backlash. The police chief there tells CBS News that 260 officers, that's about 20% of the force, have left in the past year and a half. Think about that for a second.
20%.
Carter Evans spoke to one officer who says the city does not have their backs.
What's the biggest complaint among officers?
Leadership.
Officer Clayton Powell has served 27 years on the streets of Seattle.
30 years is kind of a pinnacle. It was my goal when I started.
You're 3 years short. Why are you retiring now?
The support that we had in my generation of policing is no longer there.
Last summer's protests over the killing of George Floyd led to violent clashes with Seattle police. Powell says the stress on officers was compounded by city leaders' decisions to abandon a police precinct and letting demonstrators, some armed, occupy an entire neighborhood for a full month.
When you've got rocks and bottles and in some cases cinder blocks thrown at you and we have to stand there and take it, it's discouraging.
Were you told not to react?
In most cases, yeah. When you see businesses get destroyed and families lose their livelihood because of that destruction, and we can't do anything about it, we're not allowed to intercede.
You're not allowed to intercede?
No. No.
City leaders allowed the police-free zone after protesters were repeatedly hit by tear gas, but closed it down after weeks of violence.
The real issue here is that for generations, our Black and brown community members have been asking for more accountability.
City Councilwoman Tammy Morales voted for a 13% cut in the police budget in November.
We spend about $400 million a year on the police department. And as a city, we don't spend on the kind of things that could really support neighborhoods, affordable housing, neighborhood planning, small business development.
So you're talking about taking that money and approaching a systemic problem at the ground level now.
Yeah.
We're here to fix a broken system.
The money the council cut from police will be reallocated through a still undefined process involving community members.
In the meantime, is the police department underfunded to do its job while you're developing all these other resources?
I would say no.
If the crime rate goes up, is that acceptable?
So if we're investing in communities the way we should be, then we can begin to address that.
I informed Mayor Durkin of my intent to retire from the Seattle Police Department.
After the council cut the police budget, the department's then chief, Carmen Best, retired early in protest. Interim chief Adrian Diaz took over.
Does it concern you that so many people are leaving the department so fast?
You know, it does, because we saw our shootings go up. We saw our homicides go up.
Does it slow down response time?
It slows down response times. I had to get rid of, our community policing teams.
It seems like you feel like you're forced to cut the very people that protesters would like to see more of on your force.
Yeah, I think those are so valuable.
While Clayton Powell objects to how the city is treating its police force, as an African-American man, he says he understands the outrage over the murder of George Floyd and others.
That could be me. That could be my son. That could be a relative. That could be a friend. There needs to be an understanding of how things got to be the way they are.
But defunding the police, is that the way to do it?
No. If anything, you need more funding.
But that's unlikely. Another $5 million in police budget cuts are still on the table. For CBS This Morning, Carter Evans, Seattle.
Okay. So that was a good one. And you got a beef out of it.
Well, I had you an OPA again.
Yes. OPA on the way out the door. So how I somehow got thrown into that was another sergeant that had recently retired from the department that I worked with at Southwest was asked to do that interview. He had something come up and couldn't do it and asked me if I would. And I said, sure, why not?
Right.
So it turned out to be a little more involved than I thought. I didn't know it was going to drop as soon as it did, because if it had waited like 8 more days, I wouldn't have got a beef, because I would have been retired. But whatever. I don't know if the city's upset because
they're probably sending me like 30, and I'm just gonna send them right back. I just don't even. I don't care.
So my retirement paperwork was in. It was like I said, days or so before I was going to retire. I hadn't rescinded any of the paperwork, and I think they're probably more upset about what I said instead of not having permission to say it.
Right.
Because I revealed some things that, and I can't tell you the number of emails and text messages and phone calls and in-person comments I got that, man, I'm glad you spoke up and said the truth, because a lot of us can't. We're still here. So some of them at the command staff level too. So
it's huge, because they want to talk about transparency, but this is you being transparent, speaking the truth, and you're punished for it. They don't want the transparency that is the truth. They just want the transparency where they think, okay, we can just keep the community on our side. And that's wrong. That's BS. That's not building bridges. So
right. And that's, when I went out, I left my letter too, and I said the exact same thing. You've got a problem. You got a systemic problem here.
Yes.
And what would you say some of those problems are?
Not understand, and we've already touched on it, the leadership and not understanding where your officers are. When you've got officers that are, constantly being barraged by comments from the media, your own city council members. And I'm going to throw this out there right now, 2 points. With the city council, if you're going to be a city council member of a major metropolitan city, then you should have to go through a citizens police academy, because
100%.
then you will understand what the officers go through. And 2 is, since you called for defunding, those 3 major names that if I could remember all of them, I'd spit them out. You called for defunding of the police, and now you're giving officers or offering $30,000 bonuses to try and get people to come apply at your department. I can tell you what, why don't you take that money out of the city council budget and pay those people that you're having come in and work in your city? Because you totally lambasted the police department 2 and 3 years ago. And now you're paying people exponential amounts of money that it's crazy. I would have given $5,000 to get hired 30 years ago. Now you're paying people $30,000 to apply.
And they still can't get the numbers they need. That's what's so, that's what you don't understand.
Not just the money. No, it's not the money.
It's not the money.
Not even close. It's a toxic environment of the council, the mayor, and the department.
Yeah. So some of the chief complaints that I had was just like, how there isn't any transparency and they sweep stuff under the rug. The perfect example of that is the Chop Chaz zone and the deleting of the texts and the emails, and nobody wants to own who abandoned the East Precinct. And, everybody's doing this, pointing at each other, and nobody wants to own it. And you've got some really big problems in this department, and the favoritism and how people get selected for certain positions. And, there's, they advertise that there's all these 20 different places to go or whatever. Well, yeah, there is 20 places different to go if you're in the in group. If you happen to be in the out group, you're not going anywhere.
Right.
So, there's no fairness. There's no, a lot of those things. And we're seeing now, like, you're so short-staffed that you just can't even own it. And you're still putting people out on horses, walking up and down Aurora just for the literally dog and pony show. I mean, you're literally doing that. And I mean, I have lost just so much respect for what is, departments around the country are short. We all know that, right? But if you're a chief, you recognize that that's what it is, and you cut back, even if it's the horse unit, right? I mean, you have reserve officers or whatever, or you could do the horses on overtime or whatever, but you got to put some bodies in some cars to get them out to these people that need help.
That's true. I agree.
I mean, does that sound right to you?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely right. Yeah.
What do you think happened?
Huh?
What happened? What do you think happened in 2020 with the riots?
Mm.
I mean, what's your take on it? I mean, how did we abandon the precinct? Who's responsible for that?
Not only abandoning the precinct, which shows a lack of support for officers, and it's you abandon communities, the business community downtown, and look at how many businesses just folded up and left Seattle because they didn't have the law enforcement support, which comes from upstairs. There are those of us who are around for WTO, and when you want to talk about being put on a world stage, Seattle police got put on a world stage. We were supposed to, the prediction from the FBI was that we should anticipate losing 7 officers during the week of WTO. We lost 0 because on day 2, we had a command staff that said, that's enough.
Yeah.
We're not doing this anymore. And
it's not fun and games. This is real life stuff. We're not going to let you party. I mean, and that's backed up by Christopher Kime on Mardi Gras.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. They basically said, no, we'll let them have their party. And somebody died. And that's, and same thing with Chop Chaz. They let them have their party, and 2 kids, their kids, died in that Chop Chaz, and they should not have.
Right. Exactly. I mean, I totally agree with the First Amendment right of freedom of speech.
Yeah. Oh,
100%. Yeah. There are rules to follow. And we saw some of those rules that were totally neglected here in the last week. with the shutdown of I-5.
Yep.
If you don't have wheels, a motor, and a steering wheel, you don't belong on the freeway. That's just we had somebody die here a few years ago because of that very same thing. They were allowed to be on the freeway. So when you have people in positions of power who don't take ownership of their positions, then why are you in that position? I'm just going to throw it out there.
No, I 100% agree with you. Just own it, right? I think you and I talked about this the other day. It's like, if you fucked up, just own it.
Yeah, but if you don't have the backbone to make that call, then get the hell out of the way.
Get the hell out of the way. If you're going to sit there like a spineless jellyfish, like you are currently, then you shouldn't need to get the hell out of the way and let somebody else do the job.
Yeah. And there are people in positions, or there are people on the department not in those positions who are leaders and they're decision makers. And, they put their time in they were boots on the ground. Supposedly, that's a term that isn't allowed to be used anymore, but you can't beat them.
Are you serious?
Probably the whole Nazi boot.
It's the whole soft issue. FNG, we can't use that anymore. New boot, we can't use that anymore.
Use FNG here, and I'm going to still say brown bag.
Hey.
I mean, it's fucking ridiculous how bad it got. You know, it's just this woke virtue signaling. I mean, we're going to call it the gun reduction unit. No, it's the fucking gang unit. I mean, let's just call
it the gang unit now.
Yeah, they don't call it. No, they're not called the gang unit anymore. They're called the gun reduction violence.
Gun reduction unit or some stupid shit like that. I don't know.
Wow.
I mean,
wow.
It has just gone so far. The pendulum has swung so far that it's just gross. You're not going to get control of this city back with this current leadership. You're done. I mean, you're just done. But what happened? So I wasn't standing on the front lines, and I don't think you were, and I don't think you were either, Mike.
No,
right?
my dad had died that week, so I was out of town. So
I was forced, and but I mean, you hear, right, and you see, and you know what's going on, and what could they have done different, in your opinion, Clayton, for this? Moving forward, how would you propose that they handle that?
I would shut down the city if it were me. There'd be a line of officers on every major arterial into the city. You are not going to come here and you are not going to destroy my city. If you do, there are some harsh penalties to pay. I mean, you literally had people burning police cars on, was it 3rd Avenue?
Yeah.
And nothing was done. A rifle was stolen out of a police vehicle. Luckily, there was, I think this guy was a Marine.
Yeah, got the rifle back. Yeah, that was awesome.
Yeah, Brady Cruz, the bodyguard.
Yeah.
And so he handled business in the way that should have been handled. Mm-hmm. So when you have a reputation of, and I mentioned the WTO earlier, if we had that same attitude with some of these other major disturbances, then I don't think they would continue.
When WTO was here, I remember it like it was yesterday, and I don't remember shit anymore, but I remember that like it was yesterday. There were so many cops from around the state that was there to help us to accomplish this one mission, and that was to keep the city safe. And it worked. It went on for 10 days.
Well, that's because that's how long the conference was.
Right. But it worked. And I'm sorry, but police work isn't always pretty.
Yeah.
No.
But what really happened, though, is there's that shift in narrative where politicians got involved and stopped allowing police to be police. I mean, because we had plenty of other riots. I mean, the Ferguson riots, we handled that with, great care. We got the job done. Nobody got hurt. But then they started saying chemical munitions are against the Geneva Convention. Well, this isn't war. Okay, you don't want to use irritants. Then what do you have left? Impacts. And so it's just, and that was the biggest problem we had with the George Floyd is they took away all the chemical munitions we could use because they said they were breaking some kind of, I don't know.
Do they have them back now, or do they still not have them?
Oh, I don't know. I would say they still don't have them.
I don't think they have them
because
either.
There wasn't one dropped the other day when they took over I-5, and they basically just were scared from that.
Yeah. I think that you know, they should have handled it like WTO, how they handled it May days ago, not how they handled recent May days. But why we needed to just stop right there and, you know, section it off and, you know, just hold this hard line for that long. It was so contentious, but giving up the building is not the answer. No. I mean, you don't abandon the police building.
Especially for a police officer, that's symbolic.
Well, first, it's symbolic, but it's also you're retreating, and you don't. The police don't retreat. I mean, in that kind of sense.
If you gave up a block, you know, for the betterment of the situation, I can understand giving up a block or two, but you don't give up a precinct, which is a home to these. It's a home, as many as respect.
Well, and it's
very
also
symbolic.
It's also belongs to the community, right? That's where the community expects its police to respond from.
Yeah.
And so when the order came down from wherever mysteriously it came down from, you know, we're all because of COVID standing outside in the back parking lot of the South Precinct, and the commander comes out and he's like, "We're abandoning the East Precinct." And, you know, from the South End, you can only imagine. The South End officers are like, "Fuck that. I'm done. If we're abandoning the precinct, I'm done."
Right.
They just don't do that.
That sounds like a South End reply.
Yeah. They're like, so they were pissed. And you know what? A bunch of them did quit, and they did go to other departments over that issue alone. And we still don't know. I mean, I speculate on who gave the order, but
we can only guess at this point. Yeah.
So I don't know. Yeah. I don't know.
Well, when the last one started, it was the day that I decided, you know, I was done.
What last one started?
The last major protest from 2020.
Oh,
I was operating the mobile precinct in West Seattle, and we were called up, and it was, I think our last days were the 6th and 7th of November. And I was asked by my command staff when the whole protest started, what did I want to do? And I said, you know, I was here at WTO, and I got WTO PTSD. And if I get sent downtown and somebody gets in my face, it's over. I'm done, and I will take it over punishment I'm subjected to, because I'm just not going to put up with that kind of disrespect anymore in my career. So they said, okay, you handle West Seattle, and you know we'll take care of the rest of it. And so I worked West Seattle pretty much by myself that whole summer. But come November, and we get sent up east, and the way things were I can just say that the way it was handled was an embarrassment to me, not as a command staff member, but like I said, I'm from the old school, and you don't just continually follow protesters around and watch them destroy property.
Commit crime.
Exactly.
I laugh about it now because I don't work there anymore, but at the time, I just would just slither down a hole because I could not believe that this was happening. You know, that this was allowed to happen.
Yeah.
Well,
you know,
I'll take it one step further. Because, you know, motors, I was in motors at the time, and we were there to help facilitate traffic out of the area, protect, you know, A, the protesters, and B, most importantly, the officers. When the bicycle brigade basically took over our jobs and we were told to pack up and leave the area, I lost it. I was like, are you? So now they have their own little bicycle patrols that are now blocking off major intersections, and they're basically lining the roads, facilitating the marching path.
And we're just allowing this to happen. It's just the craziest thing I have ever seen in my life. It's like when I first got hired. Okay, so I came in during WTO. I was new, and my helmet had the number 69 on the back. So you can imagine how many times my picture had been taken, right? But you know, you had like a real helmet, and like you were just like really the police, or at least I felt like I was. By the end, I felt like God, I'm just, I'm not really doing anything. You just write some things down and you're just collecting a paycheck because they don't want you to do anything.
Yeah.
Right.
And that is so wrong. There are so many good people out there that in our communities that are just getting screwed because people are just tiptoeing around all this virtue signaling and, these people need help.
Yeah.
They need the police. You can't
That's what,
do it without the police.
right. That's what their taxpayers' monies go for.
Yeah.
To pay for a functioning, working police department. And I know both of you probably think the same way I do. I didn't come into this job and get into this profession to watch people's property get destroyed.
Be a secretary.
Thank you. And just stand back and go, I'm not doing anything.
No.
But these newer officers they're put in the position of being told to not do their jobs. And I've talked to a couple of them. One specifically said he was on a year and was told by his sergeant in 2 felony cases not to make an arrest. And he said, I'm done. A year on. I can't imagine being on a year back and just saying, I'm leaving this job that I've tried for 2 years to get into. And because I can't do my job, I'm out.
Yeah. Well, I mean, effectively, the general public doesn't know that A, the department tells you to de-police, stop policing, and B, Olympia decriminalizes everything. So you can't arrest them because the crime's gone. And these folks now looking at you saying, help me. And you're like, my hands are tied, Well, is there going to be any follow-up? You can lie to them, say, oh yeah, a detective is going to get back with you. But that's not doing them any service.
Yeah, that's not the truth.
Then they're expecting
that's dishonesty, and it's punishable up to and including termination.
That's right.
You heard that a time or two. That's what you're right. What killed me was I'm here to help. I'm here to protect. When I joined the motors unit, I became half a cop. I joked because my major function was traffic control, but I still was told not to go out and police from the traffic unit because then you might get into something. And then the traffic sergeant's got to go out and do it. But it's just, and so now I feel horrible.
So from that incident, Herjack got thrown under the bus for
that pink umbrella incident.
And we all know what the umbrellas signify, Antifa and, blocking the OC spray and blocking the line of sight for the officers and all that kind of stuff. So he got thrown under the bus for that. And then recently won an $600,000 settlement or something.
Yeah.
It'll become more because he'll get, they have to re-promote him back to assistant chief.
Right.
And then he has to immediately retire. But what are your thoughts on that?
I was actually the second member of this department to get the 30-day last chance notice agreement. Shandy Cobain being the first.
Okay, Shandy is right behind me.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to throw his name under the bus, Shandy, but if you happen to watch this, man, I still love you, bro. But there seems to be a practice of, if we screw up, we're going to make it right for you, but then you got to go.
Yeah.
Right. So that is what Assistant Chief Herjack was subjected to. And you're a command staff member who makes a decision. That's what you're put in that position for. But if somebody above you tells you to do something and you do it, then you're the one that's thrown under the bus. And I'm gonna bring one out from the old day. There was an officer up in East Precinct who had an involvement with a member from the community over, I think, a walking cane or a golf club.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
The day that happened, everybody on the command staff signed off on it. Everybody, all the way up to the chief's office. But when the video dropped and the public blew up about it, then all of a sudden that officer was cast aside. If you're going to punish her because of a video, then everybody that signed off on that incident, that particular day that it happened, needs to be
held accountable.
100%.
Exactly. Now, I'm from the Black community, right? Did I see the video? Yes, I did. Did I have some questions about the video? Yes, I did. There was both sides of that video, or I'm sorry, both sides of that interaction could have made that interaction less questionable, less critical.
Yeah.
So I don't condone that kind of, we're going to punish you because something looks bad, but when you did it, we signed off on it. So,
yeah,
anyway.
I don't understand how that works, right? So, he in the article, he talks about how Brooks had made the decisions.
We're talking about Herjack now, right?
Yeah.
Right.
How Brooks had made the decisions for the blast balls or whatever, and got something like 14 complaints or something like that. Which would be normal for somebody who's actually down in the scene as the incident commander, which Brooks was, right? But then the OPA complaint comes out and they were all sustained, right, Mike, against him or something?
Not all of them,
but a lot of them against not Herjack.
Yeah, Brooks.
So then Diaz decides to, because Brooks is a golden calf, to switch it and make Herjack the scapegoat. Is how I felt about it.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's from the Seattle Times article that we were reading, and it turns out, whether the author of that article is, got a good source or they're just kind of throwing stuff together, but they basically said, Chief Diaz had exonerated everything Brooks did, promoted him, and then demoted Herjack for that incident.
Because it would be kind of like, you're a precinct captain and one of your officers gets into a shooting that wasn't justified. And now you're going to fire the captain because the officer just made this poor decision.
Right.
Right? That's not, you just scapegoated. I feel you just scapegoated Herjack, because guaranteed Herjack was sitting up in Spock at the time, wasn't making any calls down on the street. I mean, I don't know that for a fact, but I had been down there that week and that's how it was run. So that's how I'm going to guess it played out. But, good for Herjack. Take the money and run, retire. Your health will get better.
He's probably already got another job lined up in law enforcement.
Yeah, I'm sure.
But, to go back to your CP, that incident you were talking about, the golf club, I think what happened was it got signed off on, and then the command staff says, oh, shoot, there's video of it. And then, because like you said, to look at it, it would look bad on film. I'm sorry. Police work isn't pretty. And like you said, the interaction on both sides could have, maybe brought it down a notch. But, on paper, it looked good. But then all of a sudden when the video blew, and that's, I think we first came out in-car videos. I don't think every car had them. And I think that's what happened was once a public disclosure was made and all of a sudden it's like, oh my God, the public has this and this looks horrible. That's when they, threw that officer under the bus.
Right. Yeah.
It could have been a good teachable moment, but it didn't deserve what it got.
No, she didn't deserve that. And there's a lot of people like that on the department.
Yeah.
In my opinion, that's happened to. Let's talk about some things that have happened in Seattle. It's along the same lines. But this is a tweet from Ari Hoffman, and it says, breaking, according to sources, SPD was given a stand-down order not to interfere with the pro-Hamas activists on I-5 yesterday. Mayor of Seattle allegedly gave the order to Chief Adrian Diaz. What do you think?
I know what I think.
I know what I think too. What do you think, CP?
I didn't follow that closely because a lot of times I just ignore the news.
Yeah.
I didn't even know about it till somebody sent me a heading for that incident.
Okay. Well, here's what I think about it, and I'm just going to tell you.
Okay.
Why in the hell, as the chief of police and you are the chief, you are responsible for public safety in the city, asking the mayor for any permission to do any kind of police work?
I can 100% do that. Yeah.
And you have a situation that you have to handle. This dude is down in Houston, and he's telling you, no, don't do anything. I mean, what does that? I don't know. I'm not asking for permission. I mean,
Right.
just you're hired, you're getting paid an awful lot of money to make these difficult decisions.
Well,
Right.
I mean, easy as pie is like you've been involved enough these CP that what do? They always say, hey, we got certain squads that are allocated. We're going to just put them on the ramp details. If they look like they're going to walk, if they're heading towards a ramp, we're just going to block it off before they get within 2 or 3 blocks. Easy.
Yes.
And then
Yes.
even WSP, work with WSP, they have specific squads that block off on ramps to keep,
Right.
they, especially for dignitary visits and stuff. So they're well educated and trained on how to keep people from coming onto the off ramp, onto the freeway. But yet both sides somehow weren't there at that moment. Yeah.
Right. So
Yeah,
this
so
is
it turned into this, right? Like
the finger pointing.
the finger pointing. Inslee, Harold, and Constantine, they're all like doing this. That's exactly what it turns into.
What were you going to say, CP?
This takes me back to when I got hired on by the Seattle Police Department, and that was under Chief Patrick Fitzsimons. His statement was, "I am the chief of all police," and I know there are a bunch of people if they hear that going to go, yeah, he said that. All things regarding the police department go through me, and I have the final say.
Amen.
I cannot see Chief Fitzsimons asking anybody at any level for permission to do a law enforcement action.
Oh, absolutely.
He was probably, I didn't have the pleasure of working under him, but he sounds like the last police chief that Seattle had that didn't cave to politics.
I can agree with that one also. Yeah. And
yeah,
it's just unfortunate
work with him either, but that is exactly how it should be done.
Right. Yeah. So a lot of us who get together on certain days of the week still talk about how it used to be, and Chief Fitzsimon's name does come up for the good and the bad, because if you messed up, he had ways of dealing with you, and he had some golden rules that you did not violate. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
I've been missing.
Yeah. So then we, they're blocking the freeway. So they're taking over the freeway. Ambulances can't get through. Nobody can get through. So then we send up the super squad, and the super squad is these people right here. And I don't think you can see them very well, but that's somebody that we know very well. And that is somebody that you know very well. And then these three are just
okay.
And what came out of that was just a bunch of, okay, you win. You can,
Oh, it was a bunch of fluff.
It was just a bunch of, it was show and,
Have you ever heard of the poet unit? Have you ever heard of that one? CP?
The what unit?
Poet. P-O-E-T, poet unit.
If I had to come up with an acronym off the top of my head, it would not be nice. But go ahead. Let me know.
Oh, go ahead, Jess. What is poet?
I can't remember. It was public
officer engagement team or something.
Yeah.
Like police officer engagement team. I don't know. But yeah, there was a sergeant that in that picture that was wearing, it said poet unit on the back of his jacket. Tried up for the gun reduction.
Wow. That's what my beloved profession has turned into.
Oh yeah.
Poet unit.
The poet unit.
And it has its own jacket. It says poet.
Wow.
It's just really embarrassing how far we've fallen.
So let me throw my acronym in there. P, we know what that stands for, on every team. How about that one?
Right. Yeah.
It's funny.
Yeah. Wow.
Okay, so I know. It's so bad. Okay. So then we hop over to Jason Rance, and Jason Rance starts talking about, he had been talking about the freeways. He's very vested in it because he's Jewish. And so this is really something that's important to him. But then he starts in this article going over the final numbers for SPD for the year. Mm-hmm. And he says, He says, exclusive, Seattle police had another disastrous year for staffing, losing 96 officers in 2023 and over 600 since the defund. Mayor Bruce Harrell's office won't even explain if they've completed any of the recruitment plan initiatives. Now, in your video that we played earlier, at that time, we were only down 200. And they were making 250, and they were making a big deal out of that because it was 20% of the department, right?
Right.
Yeah. At least that's what Gail King said.
Yes.
So now Jason is saying they're down at 600. I think it's more than that. And you and I discussed that there are just a bunch of people out. They're not working the street, but they're not necessarily retired either. They're just burning years worth of time, right? So that brings down our numbers significantly.
Yeah. Yes. I find it hard to believe that they say they have 900 plus deployable officers still at this today. I just don't. Because
it's not possible. That math isn't mathing.
Because even like if you read that Jason Rance article, they lost 96, but they barely hired 60. So you're still at 30 down. And that's going to be that way every year. And, 96 is actually probably a slowdown for them, which is good. But, those first couple of years, they weren't hiring anybody back.
So what's your suggestion on how they should hire people?
When you give certain numbers and you only give the numbers you hire, but you don't give the number that you lose, you're lying to the public. Okay. Yet again, punishable up to and including termination. If you're at a certain level, if you're a command staff level and you want to give a number that is false, I guess that's not considered lying. So what I see happening is there was, and the chief was on one of the news channels over the summer. I think he was asked, how long do you think it'll take for the city to recover to where it was prior to the George Floyd incident and the pandemic? And he said 10 years. And I sat here with my beer in my hand and kind of smirked. And so we have to go back yet again to when Chief O'Toole came in from the city of Boston. And they had a smaller population, but had 2,000 officers. And she wondered, how the hell do you guys get it done with that number of officers? So even if by some just wizardry that some comes out of somebody's behind, in 10 years, if you go back to where you were, but you were already 800 deficient in numbers, how are you ever going to go back to where you were? Where you were prior to those things happening, you were already in the negative.
Yeah.
So you have a police department that had the same number of officers as it did in 1977 in the year 2020, and you started losing those. The city has grown what percentage since 1977? But
plus all the drugs now and all the crime and everything's locked up. And what is it that command is doing that is stifling everything so much?
I wouldn't say command. I'd say our council, our mayor, lack of a contract. I mean,
the officers need a contract like stat. But I mean, what is happening? I mean, do we have all these people in the upper echelons of the department that just, it's gross.
Yeah. So let's look at the OPA process.
Okay.
And I've asked this question in a meeting a few years back. When the OPA first started, it stood for the Office of Professional Accountability.
Mm-hmm.
Somehow, over the years, that changed to the Office of Police Accountability. Now, there were 3 people from the OPA in that meeting when I asked that question. Not one of them could tell me when it changed or why it changed. So the OPA is now a police headhunting unit. When you have a certain percentage of your complaints in a process that was meant for external complaints from the community, but now a higher percentage of your complaints come from within the department, therein lies your cancer.
Yeah.
Because if I have a command staff member who's going to beef me for something that should have never even made it out of the police circle, how do you expect anybody to come want to come work for your department? You don't have a contract.
Well, add to that.
Yeah.
There have been things that have happened to me on this department that nobody knows about, not even Mike, that have happened. But I couldn't say anything, one, because they wouldn't believe me. They'd investigate it and flip it back on me and make me the suspect, because that's just how it works. It's all the buddy system, and, you just...
But yeah, I think you're right, CP. I mean, I don't know if this is to be true, but I heard like the sergeant schooling that they have to go to become sergeant, they actually promote and talk about how to basically rat on your own squad, and it's like, well, what kind of environment are you fostering if, officers got to now worry about, I mean, there's a certain sergeant in the North Precinct, I'm not going to say their name, they would watch video, not because they're there to investigate something, they're watching it for complaints.
Right.
And that's not what in-car video was set up to do. And just like you said, it went from officer professional to police. That's not what their job when I came on was not that.
Well, I read recently that they had installed AI to comb video like 24/7, looking for shit.
Well, they got caught with that.
And they got caught.
Yeah, that came out in the news.
Right.
Good.
So,
that's messed up shit.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just reviewing video alone, just as the use of force, Lieutenant, just reviewing alone, there's some stuff on there that, if the officers knew that I had seen it, they would probably just die. They forget to turn it off when they go to the bathroom, see the text messages on their phone. I mean,
But yeah, CP, you're right, though. I mean, that whole AI thing is a perfect example of an internal, basically, witch hunt, because it was authorized by the chief to spy on his own officers, our friends, and they've made public. Well, who's going to want to come? Hey, I'm from New York. Oh yeah, I just heard the chief over there spying on his own people through AI on body worn. Why would I want to go work there?
Right.
They're going to move across country, then get fired because let's say they're New Yorkers.
Right.
But it's just, you're right.
I mean, I hate to, because I love Seattle. When I first moved here, this city was so clean and was so beautiful, and I was happy to be here, and I loved where I worked and all this kind of stuff. But that has significantly changed over the years.
Yes.
Now, I would not recommend that anybody move here. I would not recommend that anybody work here until there is a command change. What say you?
There's going to have to be a command staff change from the mayor's office. Now, I don't have anything personally against Mayor Harrell. He and I had a relationship before he became mayor, so he was one of the few people in the city that supported me at a pretty critical time in my career. So, but he and I have talked after, just happened to run into each other. So he adopted a headache. First of all,
he did.
Then you have leadership within the police department that needs to alter their mindset about supporting their officers. So if and I may have fallen off the subject of what you asked me, but if it's going to turn around, there has to be some major attitude changes within the police department here in Seattle. So that's just the way I see it. I still have friends on the department. I still have people in the community that I had contacts with who still call me and ask me how I'm doing and want to talk about, what's going on in the city. Well, first of all, I don't work there anymore, but good luck to you if you still live there. But I mean, they know I'm retired, and it's just a matter of, you don't want to completely try and throw shade over the city, but the city put itself in this position. So
and I don't want to. I mean, I really care about the citizens in Seattle.
Right.
I really do, and I just want them to just buckle down and just not put up with this shit anymore.
Exactly.
You gotta just speak up. You gotta speak up and say no. We're not gonna let you block the freeway. And if you're gonna block the freeway and the entrances and all this kind of shit, you gotta go. You're fired.
Well, let's be honest. There's a lot of communities down in the South then when they started talking about defunding and take away a lot of these programs that were there to help foster a relationship, they're the ones saying, no, don't take them away. Don't defund them. It's a matter of fact, we need more police in the South End. Please help us.
I think the South End was the most vocal
Yeah,
about it.
They were.
Yeah, that they wanted to keep the police for sure. So what can we do to help this situation?
What do you got going on that's going to hopefully help the situation?
Yeah.
Well, funny you should ask. Myself and another officer who used to work for Seattle are in the process of getting a program started called COST, and it's Communities and Officers Succeeding Together. Because when you look at the overall,
I like that.
Well, if you like the acronym,
it's better than poet.
So what we started coming up with through conversations over time is that we've been doing parallel work, but not together. When he was in his other units, and he ended up at the academy and has since left there. The issue is communication. Yeah, like I said, coming from a community of color and growing up in the 60s and the civil rights era, yeah, I've seen some horrific things done by the police. If you ask a police officer, why does A, B, C, and D community not like the police? I guarantee 80% of them have no idea.
Yeah.
Likewise, if you ask a member of the community, why do you think police officers do their job the way they do? They have no idea. So until there are conversations, and I'm talking about gut level, sometimes transparent, vulnerable conversations,
yes,
we're just going to keep spinning our wheels in the mud and nothing's going to come of it. And it's one of those things where everybody's talking about the other side. Well, we get trained on how to deal with the community as police officers. Who's training the community and how to deal with us? You know, so when I show up on a traffic, or I stop you for a traffic stop, and the first words out of your mouth is, why the fuck are you bothering me? Why don't you go, blah, 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 some rapists and murderers. There are people out there, raping kids and selling drugs. Okay, but they didn't just run the stop sign.
I've never heard that before.
Oh, I've heard it a couple of times.
I'm kidding. I'm being sarcastic. I've heard that a million times.
Okay. You got me on that one. And it's just, it's a matter of you. Okay, so you make a mistake. I show up to do my job because of your mistake, and I get my ass chewed out.
Yeah, you're the bad guy.
That's going to unfold, right? Now, if I had a bad day and left home in a bad mood as a police officer, and the first thing I hear out of somebody that I contact is that, how do you think that's going to make me feel? Yeah. Now, and the public doesn't understand that police officers are human too.
That's right. And so I was doing a lot of outreach because, I grew up very poor. My mom was a raging alcoholic. I mean, we were on the verge of homelessness for a very long time. So I always reached out to the homeless and did a lot of that on my personal time. So this happened in Seattle yesterday, speaking of taking care of your communities and how when you're not in tune with them and you're not reaching out to them, this kind of stuff happens. And this is very tragic. This is very, very tragic. It says, our crew at We Heart Seattle found another dead body today in the northwest Queen Anne Greenbelt that borders Dexter. The body was decomposed down to the bones. We must enforce illegal camping to save lives. Where is the outreach? We need more boots on the ground. So I think that goes back to the program that you're doing, right? Like you have to get involved with the communities.
You can't get a louder outcry from the community than that. Now we're finding people dead that have been there so long that their bodies decayed down to the bones. And the community said it. We need more boots on the ground. So when it comes to solving an issue that has been allowed to fester for so long that now you're doing triple time trying to catch up, not keep up. And so we're going to have I can't even find the words that I can say here respectfully that it's going to take to turn this whole system around. And it's just, there was one chief that was here years ago that had the senior patrol officers program. And once a month, he would meet with the top 25% of patrol officers and ask them how he was doing as a chief.
What was the acronym for that? There was some kind of, was that Sanford that you're talking about?
No, I think it was before that. Metz was the chief, the assistant chief. So as the commander of the patrol bureau, I thought that was an excellent idea, and it kept the command staff, at least his portion, in tune with what the officers on the streets were doing and saying. And we tried to tell them, I would say easily 10 or 12 years ago, if you guys allow this to keep festering, it's going to blow up. Well, where are we? It is blown up.
Well, I talk to Nick every once in a while. And he really has a hard time because he was on the command staff at the time of the Rick Nelson incident.
Oh, they did him dirty.
Yeah, and he is having a real hard time with it. And he started an organization over it, and is just doing the best that he can to help other officers and stuff. So I find that really admirable.
Well, her name escapes me, but who's the black female community leader, Reverend something? She's always been very vocal, but she's always been
Harriet.
Harriet. She's always been.
I like her.
Toe the line. She's like, hey, the police do wrong, I'm going to call them on it. But when the police do right, I'm going to let you guys know they're doing right. And she's the one that was screaming, we need more bodies, more police to help her and her communities. And I think
you're talking about Victoria Beach.
No, he's talking about Harriet Walden.
No, I'm talking about who you're talking about. CP. What was her name? Victoria.
Yeah, Victoria Beach. Yeah, Vicky Beach. Yeah, she's the current head of the African American Advisory Council Board.
Yeah.
So she and I have had some pretty in-depth conversations as well. And Harriet Benjamin has been at a few of the meetings, and Harriet Benjamin actually turned against the body-worn video program when it started, because she had an epiphany that said, if the police come into my house and they're on a call, they're going to be videoing inside my house. I don't like that. So she spoke out against the body-worn video camera program. So I think that may have been part of when it was adjusted, where you can turn your video camera off if somebody objects to it being on in their house. I don't.
You know what? I like the video, the body-worn. Man,
I'd leave that call before I turn the body worn off, because that's when things go sideways. And because let's be honest, right now an officer's word is not good anymore. Before you go into court and you were believed because you're the police. Now it's like you're the it's the bizarro world. The cops are the the suspects, and the suspects are the victims, and our word isn't good anymore. And so I, for one, was always for body worn, because you cannot refute what is being shown on video. But you can always say, "Oh, that officer didn't tell me that. I didn't hear him say that before we attacked him."
Right.
So how do people get, like, in, like other agencies or organizations that want to? Is it a consulting business, or?
It's going to be kind of on that level. We're not ready to go public or go live with it yet. There's a couple more things we have to do. But actually, I've talked to a couple of chiefs around the area. And they like the idea, especially coming from.
You would go to the agency, and then is that how?
Well, we'd make it public. We've talked to Seattle Public Schools about presenting there, and it's just that I used to work with the Urban League with this program called the Cohort. Career Bridge, and it's a cohort program that I spoke with some of the formerly incarcerated folks for about 3 years. And I initially called it Police Interaction 101 because it was basic. So there are a lot of people out there who don't understand some of their basic rights when it comes to interacting with the police. And this is definitely not going to be an anti-police thing. It's just going to be another one of those where if both sides understand what's going on, then both sides will have a higher likelihood of surviving whatever encounter it is.
It's even like now, even just being a civilian, and nobody knows what I did for a living prior to this. So now I have to learn it all from the civilian side myself.
Right.
So.
But yeah, that's a good point, because what you're saying is like police interaction 101. They don't know what we're there to do, but they're also getting told by somebody else of influence of what not to do or how to do it wrong. So, we both need to come together and know both sides are going to do it right, like you said. So there's a positive outcome and everybody walks away.
Right.
Well, I can't wait I'm excited to see where you take this. It sounds like a great idea. And I think, this area needs it so bad.
Right.
If it takes like the officers just banding together and just, hitting the streets and, building these communities back up, then, that's what we got to do. But, command isn't helping right now. So it's going to fall on the officers and people like you.
Right.
Yeah. It's definitely lost in translation when it comes to community members and the police sitting down at a table. Something's lost in translation because they're not getting the job done on either side. And that's the only way we're going to, build our communities back and save our kids.
Yeah. And that's where it comes full circle. Saving the kids. So I got to get to them early though.
Yeah, because right now they're learning how to deal with the police through YouTube and that's our TikTok, and that's not a good way.
It's not a good way. That's not a good way to learn how to unroll some toilet paper. But anyway.
Yeah. Okay, so how can people get a hold of you?
You can reach me on my email at this point. CEEPEE5776 at Yahoo.
Okay, say that again slower.
CEEPEE5776 at yahoo.com to find out about the COST project. So
do you have a website or anything for the COST project yet?
It's coming. We've got the name set aside so that nobody else can steal it.
Okay, so you got the domain. Yeah, good.
Yeah.
Definitely keep us in the loop and we'll help you.
I definitely would. Definitely would.
It sounds great. And I applaud you and thank you for doing the ride. Thank you for all of the time that you served in the honor guard. You were by far went above and beyond.
Well, I'm gonna throw those flowers on Frank Campson and TJ Havenar because they're the ones that Frank allowed me in, and TJ I got under his coattail and rode it till he walked out the door. He was. People ask me, where'd you learn all your ceremonial protocol? So I went to the TJ Havenar Academy of Ceremonial Protocol, and that's where it all started. So I'm gonna give the props to them. Yeah.
Well, I thank you again, and thank you for coming on and sharing your story. We really appreciate it, and keep us in the loop so we can update people. And
miss you, brother. Miss those rides. Miss hanging out with you.
Yeah, it was good times. I thank you guys for the 8 years of support, because I know the first ride you got there, you said to be back, and you kept your word.
Yes, we did. So it's good to talk to you, and we hope to have you back.
Yes, you will. I'll be around.
Okay.
All right, you guys
Peace out.
All right. Take care, bud.
Take care.
Thanks so much for tuning in to this episode of the Fuzz Buzz Podcast. If you're enjoying what you've heard today, please feel free to rate, subscribe, or leave a review wherever you listen to your podcasts. That helps others find the show, and we greatly appreciate it. Once again, thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you in the next episode of the Fuzz Buzz. Y'all be good out there.